Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and fellow friends. I welcome you all to Live Life Large, a three-part series on mental health. I'm your host, Benita, and today we're in conversation with three wonderful men who are going to help simplify understanding mental health. Before we begin, let me introduce you to our panel. Firstly, we have Dr. James Chacko, founder and president of LifeBridge, based in Chandigarh. We're also joined with Dr. Samson Gandhi, Executive Director of Person to Person, based in Hyderabad. Also, we have with us Samson, Chelliah, Behavior Analyst from Transform Experiential Learning, based in Punjab. And with my personal background of degree in psychology and journalism, I'm also privileged to share and host alongside these three gentlemen. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benita.
Thank you.
Today, our focus is on mental health and younger generations. Tune in again next 2 Fridays at 4 p.m. when we will address mental health and the role of parents. And in our final session, we'll tackle mental health and the responsibility of authority figures, leaders. Our panelists will be sharing from their experience working as mental health professionals, behavior specialists, and spiritual guidance counselors, talking about the various challenges that youngsters face. Our hope is that you will be taking away with you a better understanding of mental health issues faced by youngsters while also learning some ways to navigate through this personal, mental, emotional, and spiritual turmoils, especially during these times. Let's begin our conversation with this sweet but simple question and a very light note. If you could wake up tomorrow in a body of somebody else and assume his or her life, would you do it? If so, who would you pick? And what if you become the real you again in a month or maybe a year? I'd direct this question to Dr. Samson Gandhi.
Yeah. I don't know about now, but when I was young, it was not just one person. When I was at college, I would want to wake up as an Amitabh Bachchan. When I was on the playground, I wanted to become a Michael Jordan. And in the night, when I was listening to news, I wanted to become Prannoy Roy. But early in the morning next day, it was Samson again. Trying to be different things at different times, but never catching up, and always disappointed, inadequate, and totally frustrated. That's how I was. I made a long journey from there.
What about you, Dr. James Chacko?
Definitely, it goes the same for me as well. Just like Dr. Samson, I struggled with my identity and my inadequacies from early childhood due to various factors such as rejection and so forth. And so I actually aspired to take comfort in watching a lot of movies, and the movie stars became my heroes. And I would make my hair look like certain movie characters, dress like them, and walk like them. But I realized I was not always keeping up their standards and expectations. And even later, till actually a few years ago, I struggled with my own identity and my own personality. And I always wanted to be somebody else. And I was comparing myself with other successful people. But then maybe about 15 to 20 years ago, there has a huge transition from that. And life is not the same since those change that happened in me.
Nice. No. Would you like to throw some light on this as well, Samson?
Yeah, I believe that I've had my share of putting myself into someone else's shoes periodically. Even now, I wouldn't say that it's any different. But yeah, from time to time, I kind of enjoy putting myself in the shoes of somebody that I really admire. It just kind of makes you feel that following someone with the kind of character that they have gives you a sense of hope that yes, there is a possibility that you can acquire something of somebody which you can go ahead and embed in your own unique way. So yes, I think I definitely enjoy that part, so I wouldn't say no.
All right. I myself would choose to be a lot of different people, but I do always come back to wanting to be myself again. I'm really happy to hear this. Everybody has a dream or fantasy or something that we hold on to. Maybe sometimes an unrealistic standard of attaining an ideal state of life. And it can always bog us down. But today's youngsters, we need to remember also that we need to come back to reality. That's what's more important. So let me go on to the next question. In this materialistic world with, small tasks, big goals, and fulfilling the bucket list, are the biggest motivators in one's life. Not attaining a few of them can really hit hard on our inner peace. So, do expectations from authority figures, self, and society play a role in creating this? And what can those around us do to identify a shift in these attitudes and thoughts of youngsters early on? I'd like to direct this to Samson again.
I think I'd like to begin with this statement that where your treasure is, there will also be your heart. And as far as our generation is concerned, we're so consumed by what we consume. And consumerism has become such a big challenge in everything that we indulge in, even by the things that we are motivated with. So I would really say that sometimes we can just get caught up with this whole bucket list idea, even when it comes to our own lifestyle and behavior and habits. I think all of us have thought of making enough money and retiring early and just globe-trotting to those fancy destinations where you want to travel and have those beautiful pictures and have your Instagram, Facebook to be filled with it so that people can see that you're happening and or you have things going for yourself. But on the other hand, I think the real question that I really feel is, what is our vision all about? Yeah, we do have big, hairy, audacious goals, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think the most crucial part is all of us need to consider that our vision is something which is crucial for our lives. If there is no vision, there is no direction. And I like this saying where it goes, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And I believe to have that vision also has a few questions that we need to ponder on. What directions do I need to chart my course of my life? And what eternal value does my vision have? And I think those are the guiding questions which will help you to bring meaning or to add value to what you do.
Vision truly does add onto your life, and it's important to have a vision. What is your take on this, Dr. Gandhi?
Expectations are good as long as they are inspirational. But when parents or society or even authority figures push these expectations onto the youngsters as a demand, as something that is conditional for their acceptance, and then they make it a driving force in order to sometimes even fulfill their own dreams, it becomes a big burden on the youngsters. There is a Greek term called arete or arit, which means excellence. And I believe every youngster can achieve excellence in his or her own way without comparing or rising up to somebody else's expectation, but have one's own realistic expectations and strive towards excellence. Then it is a meaningful life. Otherwise, when the gap expands between people's expectations, even personal expectations and reality, then mental health problems set in. Then we feel depressed saying, what I want, I'm not getting. Then there is a problem. So you got to look out for certain things where youngsters probably are not sleeping well, lost appetite, mood changes, suddenly you see a withdrawal behavior, then you need to take notice. So expectations are good as long as they're inspirational. But if they become a demand from external forces, that becomes a burden. So I encourage every youngster to pursue this and achieve excellence in their own way and enjoy life.
What's your take on this, Dr. James? What's your take on this?
I agree. I agree with both Samson Chelliah and Dr. Samson Gandhi. Expectations, if negative expectations can play havoc in our lives and cause negative outcomes, I believe if we can replace those negative expectations with positive expectation, think about the radical difference it would make you as well in terms of the outcomes in our lives. Expectations are pushed down our throat even by the commercials that we see on the advertisement bulletins. And so we need to get rid of those negative expectations and just put into perspective the expectation that I have for myself, a realistic expectation that is based on God's design in my heart.
I myself would like to share about my life and the things that I've been through, in the sense that I've also recently just come out of, having expectations, having set my own expectations for myself. Society, I felt like, was a big driver of expectations. They would just tell everything and decide everything. For example, everybody just had 2 or 3 streams to take, like be an engineer, be a doctor, be a teacher, or something like that. But I had to stick to my ground and understand that it's not needed. It's not needed to follow a certain path if you don't have a calling for it. And it's important to communicate your own expectations and your own desires as effectively as you should to all your authority figures. Even if, it will take them time to understand it, but you will have to communicate effectively. That's the main key here. But speaking of communication, this is one thing that's been on the youngsters' mind, that generational kinetics play a huge role in communication. So, do you believe that generational kinetics play a role in miscommunication, especially in the sense of mental issues? Or is it just the inability to articulate one's issues that causes youngsters to talk about like the issues? In such conditions, what approach can a youngster take when faced with mental health issues? Who do they actually reach out to if there is a miscommunication? Because, being heard and at the same time not being judged while being heard is one of the huge factors why youngsters actually don't speak up right now. And, apart from stigmatization of the topic, this is one of the bigger reasons also that youngsters don't speak up, because of the miscommunication that happens. What is your take on this, Dr. Gandhi?
Yes, there is a very beautiful narrative that is constructed over these generational kinetics. And these kinetics have been formed in such a way that youngsters developed a kind of a behavioral pattern, not only because of the generation gap that is there between the parents, authority figures, and youngsters, but also because of the socio-economic upheavals that were taking place. For example, we say millennials, and it is people who are born between about 1995 onwards till about 2000. So they have come into their teenagers around 2080, and so they're called millennials. Now, what happened? The whole world changed technologically, intellectually, at all levels it changed. And therefore, these youngsters developed a kind of a personality that was quite different from the previous youngsters. So they created a generation gap. So youngsters perhaps can appreciate where the parents are coming from. As much as parents demand that youngsters accept as they are, or what is being said, told to them or demanded of them. So there is a lack of understanding. So you ask me, if they don't find from parents, where do they go? My simple request for youngsters is they need to also communicate with parents, take that energy, make that effort, put in that energy to communicate. Now, when they can't find an acceptance and a listening ear, I believe they can find somebody whom they respect, who can offer a listening ear. They would be non-judgmental and maintain confidentiality. If they can find these 4 factors, please find them. If necessary, yes, you can call them counselors, go to a counselor, a trained counselor, a pastor who has all these things. So don't silently suffer, but reach out to someone whom you can talk to. That is the most important thing. When you ventilate, the pressure is off, you can think clearly, and you can make plans ahead more logically.
It's very important to effectively communicate. Find somebody who can actually talk to youngsters. Need to be able to do that, and also focusing and magnifying on positives. Very important. I completely concur with what you said. I'd also like Dr. James Chacko to weigh in with the spiritual head, church head perspective of this.
Well, definitely. I think if I'm going through those symptoms in my own life, that first and foremost, my parents are my mom and dad. But beyond that, there is a creator God. There is one who designed me. There is one who formed me. The Bible says, before I was conceived in my mother's womb, God knew me. And so it is God who created me, God who designed me, and He has a plan and He has a purpose in my life. And so the first person to whom I can talk to is my God. And I think we can call upon our God. If you are desperate, if you are in crisis, try this. Try just calling out to God. And the Bible says, call upon God and he will answer you and he will show you. And so in the most distressing time of my life, when I took the ropes in my hands and I was standing under the tree to hang myself, it was actually the God who spoke to me, because I actually literally cried out to God in those last moment. In that last moment, I said, there is a God out there, you need to speak to me. And so I heard the audible voice of God in that crunch time of my life. And I found myself with hands raised to this God, surrendering my life, and the ropes were on the ground, literally, under this tree. And so if I can encounter God in the most crucial moment of my life, and if you call on the one who created you, he will answer you. And then that opens up our heart to speak to other people. And God will also bring to our path godly people who wants to reach out to us as well.
That's very beautifully said. Actually, in my life as well, I've seen that I did take a moment where I, said out to God that Samuel, I'm not Samuel, so I cannot effectively hear your voice. I cannot hear you. So talk to me, God, and use people around me to talk to me. And I think in 10th grade, you can go as young as you like, but in my own 10th grade, I remember that when I told this to God and I spoke out and I asked him to speak to me, I remember the next day when in my school, the founder was coming in and she wanted to pray for the first batch of 10th. And she called out and she said, Benita, I would like to talk to you. And when she talked to me, she clearly and directly said to me that your body is a temple of God and you don't have the right to take away that life. And that's when I knew that even though I was born in a Christ-centered family and, talked about Christian living and everything, and the turmoils that I was going through, the doubts that I had on myself, at that moment I needed an external help where God would talk to me through somebody directly who would understand what I was going through. And I clearly understand what you mean by God directly speaking to you and calling out to God for help. Everything really boils down to thoughts. And so I would like to ask this question, that how do random thoughts have the ability to alter a situation? I mean, both good or bad. What should one do when our emotions are spinning out of control? What role does thoughts play, and how can that alter our reality and our situation? I'd like Samson to go ahead with this question and give us his take on this.
Thank you, Benita. I think this is a very important aspect because our thoughts really matter. Because what you dwell upon has a diverse effect on everything that you believe and everything that you do. As the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. So the question that really we ask ourselves is, what are we thinking? And so the first thing when you wake up each morning, you're flooded with a whole lot of thoughts. Each one of us are bombarded with all kinds of different thoughts, not just in one specific way, but even as those thoughts actually flood your mind, taking every thought captive and being relevant is so important. And I think that's where we really need God's help. And that's why seeking first his kingdom and his righteousness comes into the picture. Otherwise, you're being flooded with so much of information from the media. Maybe you watch something before you went to bed, and maybe that's kind of influencing you when you wake up the next morning. Or maybe you watch something on the television news where the news doesn't seem to be good out there. So all of these things have a way of getting your attention and diverting your thought process. And that's where we have to be very careful, where indulging in something which is negative or something which can really distract our attention can really create an aspect of disappointment and setback, because all these things, especially negative words of communication or images, have a major way of influencing our emotions. So we have to be very, very careful about what kind of thoughts do we allow in our minds in the way of how we chew on some of these thoughts. Because sometimes you can't stop from some of these thoughts coming into your mind, but you have the right to go ahead and choose which one do you want to dwell on. And I think that's why it's so important. If we have our thinking in the right order, in the right place, it's automatically a lot more easier to go ahead and do things in that order. But there are thoughts that can really shape us as well. And that's why when we look firstly to the Word of God, it really encourages us and gives us hope and meaning, and builds our faith. And I think that's where your day is being recharged like a phone's battery before you go on to deal with some of the aspects that you're going to be faced with your life. So yes, thoughts are very, very crucial. What you allow does matter. What you don't allow has an important aspect to it as well.
Benita, if I may, just add to what Samson have just said, I believe core beliefs are the underlying factors that helps us build our thinking and our thought pattern. And it is that we need to strengthen in order to have deliverable thought patterns in our mind. But when we do go wrong, we need to reevaluate and ask the serious questions. What I'm thinking, does it make sense? Is it helpful? Is it true? And if we can ask ourselves these three questions, it will really help us to reevaluate and get back to us, evaluating our core beliefs.
So core beliefs play a major role, as Dr. James said, and Samson also said that you have a choice. You allow these thoughts. So from that perspective, I wanted to ask Dr. Gandhi to also weigh in. What do you think about allowing choices, whether good or bad?
Yeah. If you see the profile of the young people, their life is driven by emotions. And so if you notice the advertisements, just do it, is driven by an emotional energy. Most of their behaviors are driven by feelings. I feel it, I do it. And naturally, their feelings are not necessarily based on truth, based on constructive ideas, and based on something that is healthy. But however, they're so overcome by emotions because, as Dr. Chacko said, and also as Samson said, there are false assumptions, irrational thoughts. Let me give you an example. Dr. Chacko said there was a moment in his life where he was about to take his life. By hanging himself by that rope. Now, at that time, I believe he was driven by his emotions, saying, terrible, life is a mess. But the belief that drove him to that desperate step about to take is, the solution to my life is to take my life away. That is a wrong belief. Now, every youngster is aspiring to somebody. We started this conversation, me saying that I should want to be like an Amitabh Bachchan or a Michael Jordan, or Dr. Chacko saying that he wanted to be a movie star and things like that. Now, that is a wrong belief. Now, look at some of the aspiring actors. Initially, they like it if they are compared with good actors, but later on they would assert and say, no, I am different. I don't want to be compared. So you see how this curve goes downward. So initially, if we start, I am unique, I'm capable, I'm special, I have something to contribute. If these thoughts drive us and not emotions, you will end up with good stuff. And we can face our life much, much more confidently. So ask that question, am I driven by my feelings, or am I driven by my beliefs? Rational thoughts, the truth. And therefore the Bible says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Now, nobody likes a herd mentality. Everybody wants to be unique. For example, today, I feel bored, lonely, rejected, so I resort to pornography. What is the belief that is going on right behind in my brain? This is the way out. And my brain is also saying, my heart is also saying it is wrong. But then again, a wrong belief comes up and says, no, everybody does. There's nothing wrong about it. It's a good relief. It is the in thing. So again, you succumb. So you overcome your own thoughts. So what is that overriding thought that can set right your emotions? And when you take control of your life and you are able to live on your terms, you will feel a sense of self-respect and pride and joy. And if one can do that, he's on a right path. He will enjoy.
Rightly said, rightly said. I completely agree with what you said. So let's also look at one thing, belief system. Belief system actually comes also from the fact that social media is a huge driver of these beliefs. What we see in today's generation, the millennials, the Gen Z, the Gen X, the Gen Y, everybody, that's where they get all their inspiration from. So, like, social media is always blamed. I mean, there are so many positives to using it, but social media is generally blamed to mess up the minds of youngsters. So, what is your take on that, and how, if it's the truth, how can they protect themselves? So, this also to Dr. Gandhi. Please, what's your take on this?
When there is a tool, social media is a tool. Let us perceive it that way. When there's a tool, you can use a tool for good and for bad. It is great to use social media to stay in touch, to disseminate information, announce an event, stuff like that. But if you allow social media to drive your life, then there's a huge problem. Let me illustrate. You post a new profile picture. In the next 1 minute, if you don't get 200 likes and you go down the dumps, then the social media is driving your life and you are not using the tool, but the tool is manipulating you. So we need to be very careful. For what reasons do we reach out to social media? Let me give you another perspective. Now, social media can be used as an entertainment, as a diversion, as a leisure activity. But sometimes we see youngsters, it is not entertainment, it is not leisure, but it is a perpetual obsession. Now, what happens when such a thing is going on in our lives? Every other aspect of our lives takes a back seat. Now you and every youngsters want to go on a holiday. Can you be on a perpetual holiday? No. You work hard, earn that vacation, and make that vacation happen and enjoy leisure, and you go back to work. Likewise, if you can reach out to social media as a diversion, as an entertainment, as a leisure for a short time and set your boundaries, you can enjoy it. Otherwise, it can become an obsession. So it's up to you to set a boundary and use it in a way you want to use it. So yes, please be on social media, enjoy it and stay connected, but set boundaries, earn it, and never let it manipulate you and drive you, but you drive it and you use it.
As an avid social media user, Dr. James, would you also like to weigh in on this option?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, Carl Newport have written a book on digital minimization, and I was reading, and Newport makes out these 3 principles for digital minimization. It says clutter is costly, optimization is important, intentionality is satisfying. So basically what Newport says here is to get rid of the excess.
Wonderfully said. Samson, as a behavior analyst, would you also like to weigh in on this?
Like Dr. James mentioned, that clutter is something that we all get exposed to the moment we log on to any social media platform. There is so much of information out there which we don't need to know. And so information overload leads to loss of objective. And the next thing is how social media has created this mental image in the way of how we process life with the whole, lifestyle behavior, which you can get to see on any of the social media platforms. It really kind of catches one's attention. And the biggest challenge that young people have to face is FOMO, the fear of missing out. And when you have this thought of, okay, am I going to be outdated? What is trending? If I'm not involved and know about what is trending, I feel that I'm lost, and I'm in a different environment, and I'm kind of from an old Stone Age background. So I think those are the kind of fears or drivers that kind of propel people or young people to kind of go and constantly put something else about there to seek recognition about what their thoughts are, about what their beliefs are, about what they want to do. So much so that the opinions of others that they don't even know has become such a huge part of their lives. And there's become no limit to that. And I think there are dangers associated with that.
Very well said. As the youngest among this panel, I would also like to weigh in my opinion on this. Being on social media for a long, long time can actually cause what's called an impostor syndrome, where you psychologically feel like you start to begin to doubt your own accomplishments and you begin fearing as being exposed as a fraud. And that's one major thing that's playing into mental health nowadays. People are watching and trying to live up to a standard that's portrayed on social media. And they always want to have the next best thing. If anybody else has something better than them, they're always trying to match up to that level and, be at par with them and not want to have a mind of their own. So I think as a youngster myself, I would also and to my friends out there, I would also like to say that, let's not be consumed by social media, guys. Let's come back, use social media for what exactly it is, enjoy our time and be entertained by it. But like all three of them said, let's have a cap on it. Let's limit ourselves and use only as much as we need, not let social media drive us. Another question that youngsters have in mind: are we able to experience a complete freedom from mental health issues? And I would like to direct this question to Dr. James.
Yes, having experienced a breakthrough in my own life at the age of 17, my dad being a schizophrenic, mental ill person, 17 years of my life, I lived in fear because every time my dad was mentally ill, all he wanted to do was to kill me. So I had to flee away from home, hide in the bushes, nights, midnights, go and live in strangers' homes where I got sexually abused in those homes when I went for escape to find a safe place. So from every corner of my life, I was bombarded with a lot of distress. And I thought that there was no escape to this. There is no end to this. And that's where I decided to commit suicide. And then, of course, God, in His grace, put in me to call out on Him and literally pray, literally call out on God. And knowing the truth of God deep in my heart has helped me in that. And ultimately, I believe that God is the source who can help us, ultimately. Yes, medical science can help us to an extent to ease the situations. Counselors can put things in perspective for us. But ultimately, we need to allow God, the one who created us, one who made us, to heal us. So having an encounter with God, submitting yourself to God's will and His purposes, and allowing God to be the center of your life. And that's why Jesus came to this world. He came to this world because He knew our sufferings. He knew our pain. And so when Jesus died on the cross, when those nails went through His hands, He took on the pain, the experience of our pain in His body, and He became the sacrifice. Today, we don't have to offer a sacrifice for freedom for our depression and our mental illness because the price was already paid by Jesus on the cross. All we have to do is come to this Jesus. And Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy-hearted. I will give you peace." And that peace that Jesus offers is the ultimate peace, that no money, no success, no entertainment, nothing can replace that peace. So today, at the age of 53, I stand as a man who have total peace with God. If God is to take my life from this earth, I'm at peace because I have this relationship with this God who designed me and He created me. I know I'm in the center of His will.
Dr. Samson, would you also like to chime in your thoughts about experiencing complete freedom from mental health illnesses?
Yeah, India is considered as a depression capital of the world. Now, we need to understand that there are different kinds of mental situations. If you go to a general practitioner, he would say 70% of the cases why they come to a doctor is because of psychosomatic problems. That is something to do with the way they process their emotions, their thoughts, and their feelings, and end up with physical problems. So yes, those kind of physical problems are because of mental disposition. Now, there are mental health problems that definitely can be addressed by counseling, by spiritual interventions. And as Dr. Chacko said, there could be miraculous interventions by God where the most serious mental health problems can be healed completely, instantaneously as a miracle. But today, how many can actually seek out, reach out for a miracle? So many of us are also not gifted with a gift of deliverance. We should be very careful to label a person as a schizophrenic, as a depressed person, or any kind of a mental health problem. We should be able to understand the different natures of mental issues and then handle those problems that are simple, that are a result of wrong thoughts and patterns, but something that is clinically wrong, that has to do with the functioning of our brain. It is important to be able to help them to go to a medical professional. Never make that mistake. Yes, I reiterate, a miracle can happen. But if the miracle has not happened, please do not take a risk with the life of a person. So I'll just illustrate with one and then end. For example, you take a common mental health issue called depression. There is what is called as a reactive depression. I fail in an examination. My relationship has broken up. I experience a reactive depression. That is, something has gone wrong. I am reacting with a depressed mood. Now, those things can be addressed by a pastor, by a counselor, by a friend, an attentive friend. But there is what is called as endogenous or clinical depression that is caused by the secretions in our brain. Now, these have to be addressed by a medical professional. For example, some problem with the thyroid can have a huge impact on our moods. A woman just delivered a baby can have impact on her moods, postpartum depression. Now, we need to understand the gamut of this, breadth of this, before we make interventions. So, mental health issues is not a simple matter. Whoever wants to address this must address it carefully. And youngsters, please do not add any stigma. There is a possibility that you can reach out, receive medication, and address your problem. Do not attach any stigma to it. Reach out.
Samson, would you also like to add in here? You might have also come across troubled souls, and you also work with.
Yeah, thanks, Benita. It's very important for people to really understand that, yes, there is help. Firstly, help is available. Never to rule out any kind of medical assistance when it's required. So yes, there is definitely a solution, and there is definitely freedom in Christ, and there is also freedom in the way how our bodily experiences of the struggle that we go through can also come from professional medical advice too.
I'd also like to ask Dr. Gandhi if he could recapitulate the entire forum.
Well, I would say that we all eat healthy in order to fight diseases. I believe that especially youngsters can think right, behave right in order to enjoy life and fight mental health issues. In order to be able to do that, we need to set right priorities, healthy boundaries, and look for people who can listen to you, who can accept you, who can guide you so that you can ventilate some of the issues that happen along the way. There are pastors, there are counselors, there are friends and parents. Please talk when you are in distress. More importantly, I would say mental health issue is not a stigma that you should carry. When you have a headache, you take a tablet. When you are upset, what do? Don't reach out for a drink. Don't reach out to pornography. Don't binge watch movies. Don't binge eating. But talk to someone that you really, really trust. God cares about you. Somebody said, He is crazy about you, so be secure in Him. And He thinks and expects a world out of you because He's going to help you to achieve it in your own unique life, in a unique way. So you are significant. Be really, really be significant in your own eyes because God thinks wonderful and great about you. And God says, you are the apple of His eye. He has etched your name on His palm. Therefore, you're precious, you're valuable. Nothing in this entire world compares to who you are for God. And each of us, we can. God bless you.
If you have any questions, queries, doubts, comments, or any answers that you're looking for, any help that you're looking for, please feel comment below. I hope this has been a blessing to you. And we hope that you will have a lot of takeaways from this session. Tune in again the next Friday at 4 p.m. where we will be addressing mental health and the roles and responsibilities of parents in shaping mental health. Thank you to our distinguished panel. Thank you for having a say and thank you for making this a comfortable experience for everyone watching. We will see you again next week. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.